Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How are you all doing today? And today I have another expert in the paranormal field, but uh, she is something which I consider so important when you start working in the paranormal field because she understands energy, and her name is Rhonda Russo. And Rhonda, besides having her own paranormal group that she founded, which is a Bump in the Night investigation, she's also a Reiki master and teacher. Okay. And for anybody that's involved in this type of work, it's understandable how important energy is, not only for ourselves as living human beings, but also the energy that's involved when somebody passes on. But anyway, let's get this started. And how are you doing, Rhonda? How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. I am so happy to have you on because, like I told you earlier, I am familiar with Reiki, but you are the first Reiki teacher I've been able to interview. And for a lot of people that are interested in the paranormal and in the metaphysical, uh, energy is basically the undercurrent. As far as I'm concerned, that makes everything work, or sometimes not work. And I'm sure maybe as a Reiki master, you understand how important energy is. But anyway, before we get into that, Rhonda, and I asked this of all my guests, what was it, or how young were you when you had your first experience where you either saw or felt something that was either paranormal or of a psychic nature?
Well, as far back as I can remember, I grew up in a historic town, and I hung around with my grandmother a lot.
Okay.
She and I would go for she and I would go for walks, and I would see people and that were dressed kind of differently
Okay.
than we were, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was just normal to me. And later on, when I became a teenager, uh, the other teenagers kind of, didn't, they kind of thought I was a little bit strange, so I kind of turned it off a little,
It's like, okay,
or else I wasn't going to get any dates.
well, you can't help it, when, and let me ask you, because you mentioned that, that with your grandmother, uh,
hmm
does this run in your family, where there's other family members that are sensitive?
She was very superstitious for a reason. Now I know. And this particular grandmother, when she was, and we didn't know she was passing away, but she said that there was a bright round ball of fire following her around in her apartment.
Wow.
And yeah, and the next day we took her to the hospital. That night I couldn't sleep. I just sat up like I was waiting for something, and sure enough I was waiting for the phone to ring, and the doctor said that she had passed away. A
Incredible.
few months before that, we took a picture of her blowing out birthday candles
Mm-hmm.
on her cake, and there was two orbs behind her, and that was taken with either a 112 or 120. It was one of those little
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those little
cameras,
cameras,
back
those
in
little
120 or something like that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so those were the balls of fire, and people, there's a big debate about orbs and orb photos, but I can see them with my eyes,
Oh, wow.
and she saw them. So they do exist. There's some type of energy. Don't know what it is, but I do know, and I can tell you for a fact, that you will often see them before a manifestation comes about or an apparition forms.
Okay, so do you think, because it sounds like, this was, she might have been sensitive all her life. In other words, do you think she anticipated, did she knew, or did she understand what it meant, or,
I don't think she understood what it meant because she was raised very religiously.
okay.
Um, Now, her daughter, which is my mother, is very, very intuitive.
Okay.
She could locate me, and
There you
and
go.
I just thought for sure that I had, she would never find me, and she could. She knew who was calling before you answered the phone,
Yes.
that kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I have been doing ancestry research, and I found that granny witches run in my family.
Oh, wow. Okay, could you
Yeah.
explain a little bit more because I think that's so interesting. What, especially as
Well,
it comes
the
to, like you said, ancestor research.
the granny witches are like the medicine women of the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, yes.
Hmm. Yeah,
Right. These were
and they
like
believed in
basically that they have their own set of folk magic and beliefs is what you're talking about?
right.
Okay.
Right, right. A lot of well, and they brought that over here. I found that I have a lot of Scottish, Irish, and even some Welsh and
Mm-hmm.
German in me,
Okay.
and a lot of them were very, you know, tribal, if you will, and very, they were healed. They had healers and things.
Okay.
So it was just normal for them to pass that down.
Yeah.
I imagine. And so, I mean, and even me, I will have the flu in the worst way, and I still will not go to the doctor. I go and I scramble around, and I'll mix up herbs and things like that, and that's how I heal myself.
Right,
And
exactly.
I
Exactly.
also
It's like this
Reiki.
intuition about what you need or what the body needs, in other words, to feel better. You know what?
Right.
And that's one of the things from what I understand is that they were also very knowledgeable as far as the use of herbal medicine and thing, what basically what you could find around you because it's not like now that you go and you go to the Walgreens or a CVS pharmacy and, get something over the counter back, when you were living in certain areas, you had to rely
Mhm.
on what you had around you. So,
Mhm.
I think that's so super
Yeah.
interesting that you found that out about
Well,
your lineage.
well, yeah, and I did the DNA ancestry DNA, and I found out that it confirmed that the Scottish ancestry and so on and so forth is in there. Even
Okay.
have some Pakistan.
Well, you know what? I think I did it myself, and yeah, and I mean, it confirmed a lot of what I knew already and everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's super interesting with the DNA. That now they could like, in other words, you get the truth about your background versus sometimes families have it all wrong. So.
Right.
But yeah, I do believe, and some people even what they talk about ancestral memory, where even if you never had contact with that ancestor, there's memories that
Mhm.
are carried through the ancestral line, and up to a certain point, I do believe that. I do believe that. Especially when it
Mhm.
comes to being sensitive, having the ability to heal or divination.
Mhm.
I think that yes, that is so true. Whether it's through lineage or family or both. So here you said, you're realizing I'm sensitive. It kind of set you
Mhm.
apart. And what was it? Were you doing what you were talking about with your mom, where you were like anticipating phone calls, or at any point did you start seeing uh, any spirits or ghosts? Which later on we'll make a distinction as far as what you're concerned. Like you said, because you're telling me you were seeing people that you were the only one that was seeing it.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one that
Well,
could
no, but I'm
see
saying is
things,
the
but
majority of people
uh-huh.
around you wouldn't have realized they weren't seeing what you were seeing.
Oh no, they were giving me that side of the eye look,
Yeah.
like ooh,
Okay. Yeah. Like, all right.
what kind of drug is she on?
Yeah.
Give me some.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, and I tuned it down because if I didn't, I would not have had. When I only had a few friends anyway. I was raised in the country, and
Mm-hmm.
I had lots of pets, and I would go out in the nature, and my parents, they're both atheists. So
Okay.
I was raised with a blank slate. Now I have Lutherans on one side, Catholics on the other,
Right.
but my parents decided they're not going to believe in anything. And
Hey.
that's how they raised me, which I'm thankful for because I wasn't told, that, oh no, there's only one ghost and that's the Holy Ghost and blah, blah, blah,
Right,
blah,
right. You
blah.
you make your own
I got to,
discovery.
right.
And let me tell you, sometimes, and that's a very brave thing for parents to do sometimes, which is allow their child to, develop spiritually. You know,
Hmm.
if they choose to do that, as long as it's not harmful, I imagine it. Yeah. So in a way,
Hmm.
I understand exactly where you're coming from as far as, they weren't trying to mold you into any type of belief system one way or the other. Um, so were you seeing people like, because I used to work with a girl, and it's so funny
Hmm.
because she was, when Halloween came around, she wouldn't even come to work because people with masks scared her. And one time I asked her, I said, "What is it with you?" I mean, she was terrorized, and she goes, "Ever since I was a little kid, I could see people." She goes, "I would be driving in the car, and we would go by cemeteries, and I would see people standing in the cemeteries." And this scared her so
Hmm.
badly that then, even as an adult, I mean, when it came to dressing up or masks or anything, it was understood. I mean, everybody knew she was not going to be into work on Halloween because, of course, people would dress up to come into work and all of that. And was that what was happening with you? Was it only at cemeteries, or was it just everywhere that you happened to go that you were seeing that?
Everywhere. It didn't matter.
Wow.
I grew up where there was a big Civil War battle.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just recently learned that one of the farms nearby that my friend grew up on, she said there's all kinds of stuff happening
Really?
there. But yeah, and here it turned out that they were they would buy and sell slaves there. They had a lot of slaves there back in the 1700s.
Okay. On that farm that she's talking about?
At the farm that, yeah, and so, but I would, at nighttime especially, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't sleep. I would be covering my head up, whatever I could do, trying to
Okay.
beg mom to come to sleep with me because I could feel them watching me.
I- Which, exactly. I was about to ask you, what was it? Was it the feeling, or like, or what you just said, that what you felt like they were watching you?
It was a feeling. Sometimes I would see images. Sometimes I would see them. One time I woke up, and this was when I shut it off, and then it started coming back to me when I was in my 30s. And I just remarried, and we moved into an apartment. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband went to work. We were on the third floor. I woke up to this girl standing at the foot of my bed.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm still asleep. And I'll close my eyes, open again, but she's still there. Open, I close my eyes, open again, she's gone. And then I hear this boom, 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 and all this pounding on down the hallway. And I thought for sure somebody came into the apartment, but we were
Right.
on the third floor. All the doors were locked. I even looked for trap doors, but there was none.
No, I bet.
So they started coming to me, but this time, instead of me just wherever I go, seeing one or a part of one or whatever, they started coming to me.
Okay. And was she tied to that apartment? Was that why you saw her?
I have no idea.
Oh, you
I
never
have
saw
no
her again?
idea. I had seen her once before when I was a teenager living at my parents' house.
Oh, okay. So I guess she's not tied to that. Okay, so that's really interesting. Hmm.
Now it could have been a spirit guide. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
it could have been.
I don't know. But she sort of looked like me, but her eyes were hollow and dark.
Alrighty then. Let me ask you, was there, oh, I know you mentioned that you had just gotten remarried and you moved into there. Was there anything else that you could think of that was going on with you that she would have appeared?
Well, not really. I mean, there was. some issues going on with my parents and my son. I mean, they decided they wanted to get possessive with him, and so I was going through some depression
Okay.
then.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she came to me for some. I mean, I do know some of my spirit guides, but I had never seen her since those
Okay.
two incidents.
Right. No, and the reason I asked was that you said you had seen her before when you were a teenager, and now you saw her, and sometimes, especially if they are guardians, they do. In other words, maybe even if they're around all the time or whatever, but you see them, it's because there's something going on specifically at that moment in your life where, even though that hollow eye part is like, I would have been like, what? He's like, if you're a guardian, man, don't, no hollow eye stuff, all right?
Yeah, I
And that
know. It's
pounding on the
kind of,
wall, you know,
yeah. Well, I guess that was the energy, and it was moving down the hall.
it's, and I wanted to bring up something that we discussed earlier, Rhonda, which is the distinction between a spirit and a ghost. And if you could explain that so that later on, as we get into the conversation, they'll understand when you refer to one or the other, why you make that
Hmm.
distinction.
Well, a ghost to me. Now, everybody. I found in this field that everybody believes differently. You might believe similarly, but a lot of people, you have your own experiences, and you go from there. But to me,
Okay.
um, a ghost is a disembodied soul. A soul is what animates our body. It's our energy.
Okay.
It goes through our chakra system. It animates us.
Mm-hmm.
When our physical body ceases to exist anymore, it leaves and it goes into the seventh chakra, which is your crown chakra
Right.
above your head.
Mm-hmm.
And it, from that point, it could stay there if you decide that you want to dwell on the earth for a while. I mean, just because you do not have a physical body does not mean that you still don't have free will, because you do. You
Right.
can choose to move on. You can choose not to move on. If you choose to move on, then you become a spirit once you cross over, because your vibrations get a lot higher then.
Right. In other words, you're not bound to the earth plane and you're like, and which is what, a lot of people think of as being ghosts because for
Mhm.
whatever reason, they get stuck in a way. Do
Well, I
you,
don't think they get stuck. I think they just don't want to go for some reason. I mean, maybe they have unfinished karma
well, and when I say
that they need
stuck, I mean like
to
usually because of fear, like you said, unfinished business.
clear.
If they've been brought up with religious beliefs where the hell thing, what if
Right.
even if they weren't bad people, a lot of people that they might think, what if I end up in the hot place, and some people will say, oh, who could believe that? There's a lot of people that really believe that, or
Right.
and I've seen this, people that had as a child they were given this religious information, then they grew up and they moved away and maybe they did things, and then when they're dead they kind of remember it all, and it's like, what if that's correct? Oh boy, I'm in trouble. And they kind of like decide, I'll just hang out here. It's not the best, but it's better than burning in in the lake of fire, whatever. And people,
Hmm.
some I know some people, especially in modern times, find it hard to believe that that could anchor a spirit. Where, like
Hmm.
you said, it does have free will, but in a way, it's stuck because that fear doesn't permit it to go any further. Even though I imagine that in between place is not the best thing for a human soul to be in. Um,
Right.
So you were telling me, one of the things that we talked about was that you now also work at a historical house doing tours. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Yeah, I've been there for about 12 years now.
Wow. And have you had any experiences there?
I have, but none with ghosts. I don't think. I
Okay.
think these were more or less visiting spirits.
And do you think it's that they're visiting because they know that you can see them or communicate with them? Or is
Well,
it that they
they
just happen to
definitely
be?
know that I can.
Or is it just
The
coincidental
people
that they were, let's say that they were going to that location for whatever reason and because you can see, or were they there for you, I guess is my question.
they it's pretty much. I'm going to use Gettysburg as an example, and
Okay.
a lot of these historical places that give tours and things. Gettysburg, and I don't live far from Gettysburg. I go up to Gettysburg a lot. As a matter of fact, I was just there the other night.
Mm-hmm.
But it's active. It yes, one of the bloodiest battles in history was fought in Gettysburg,
Right.
and a lot of lives were lost there, animals and human beings alike. But what keeps those spirits going, and I think a lot of them are spirits and not ghosts,
Okay.
but they come back because the energy there. Everybody goes to Gettysburg looking for a ghost or looking for history or from whatever reason, and a lot of them they do a lot of the dressing up
Yeah, the
and
reenaction. Yeah.
work
I mean, I've been twice
reenact.
myself to Gettysburg and it's beautiful. The monuments are beautiful, but I understand exactly what you mean as far as people going out
Yeah,
there with the expectations of,
right.
yeah. And so you
But
think
see,
that, I'm sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
that energy, our energy of reenacting and going there and all those people. I mean, they make $1 billion a year. I
Okay.
believe in just in tourism, but it keeps it's all energy, and it keeps those spirits. It gives them energy
Mm-hmm.
to come, and it gives them something that they want to come back. Does that make sense at all? I
Yeah, sure.
mean,
Yes.
so it's energy. It's the whole world. Everything has energy, some kind of a vibration to it. So it's just a big ball of energy. I mean,
Well, you know
it's
what?
just
And
energy. Energy.
and considering how many thousands of people and like you said animals were killed out there those
Mm-hmm.
those 3 days of the battle, of that area. In a way
Mm-hmm.
it's good to think, okay, there some of them are not bound, that they've moved on and they just come back like you said because you've got all these live human beings, out there trying to communicate with them.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any, especially because I've heard of people going out to Gettysburg and sometimes they'll actually hear like the sound of battles going on, even if they don't see anything. Do you think any of those are residual? In other words, it's just an imprint? Or do you think any of them
Well,
are actually. I'm sorry, go ahead.
here's my here's my take on residual energy.
Okay.
Recently, my mother-in-law passed away in September last year,
Okay.
and she actually took me on some journeys. It was her gift when she crossed over.
Okay.
But she showed me exactly what a residual energy is, and residual hauntings. You really don't. They're just like an imprint,
Right,
or
exactly.
movies that'll keep playing over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
or they could be supporting actors for the real actor. So, oftentimes when you have an intelligent hauntings, you will also have residual hauntings with it.
Yes.
Does
Okay.
that make sense? I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yes.
say I'm just going to go for instance, say General George Washington, you know, he's here and he wants to tell you something, but if obviously he's a ghost or a spirit or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it may be a certain battle, well, that he might also have a residual haunting with him of a battle going on
Okay.
to kind of prove his point and also give him the energy to come through. It's all about energy. It really is. I mean, these we wouldn't survive without energy.
Oh,
And
absolutely
when
not.
right, and when our soul decides, when our body dies and our soul decides to leave, it's energy.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we nothing can really survive without energy.
Right,
It's
and
just
basically, and in a way, it's almost like you're saying sometimes these residual imprints are like the backdrop to the story
right,
of
exactly.
might be an active or intelligent haunting or a spirit that is like, hey, I want you to get the this is what it's about. And of course, there's so much emotion, and we're using Gettysburg as a for instance. There's so much
Mhm.
emotion of all. I mean, the deepest that you could think of a human being could experience are there, that played out over and
Mhm.
over and over again, just with different people. Fear, what, so many things. Um,
Mhm.
do you? Because sometimes I know that there were, from what I understand, supposedly, the Union Army picked up the Union dead and buried them, and they supposedly did this with the Confederate soldiers. But I have a feeling that I think that there was a lot of Confederate soldiers that were left out in the field and were not properly buried. And sometimes I
Yeah.
wonder if that has something to do with the experiences people have at Gettysburg.
Well, I would think so.
Yeah.
Um, they're probably still finding, bones and things like that there. And even where I live now, we've discovered that there's been places like the one farm, for instance, that was
Right.
just real. We just realized that they were doing, selling slaves. There was a big farm for selling slaves, and in Maryland, I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
we're south of the
I was
Mason
about to say, wait, that's not what everybody always thinks of as places where there was any type of, the sale of slaves. You always think of Deep South for stuff like that.
City.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, but right here. So, yeah, that was pretty wild. So, I mean, and you know, doggone good and well that when the slaves passed away, they didn't give them a big burial. I mean, maybe
No.
the other slaves were allowed to do something like that for them, but where they were put, they didn't have a fancy graveyard,
No.
cemetery, or
No.
anything like that.
No.
So, they probably
No, they
haven't. But well, there's actually a slave graveyard around here where
mhm.
I live, and they haven't really located all of the slaves yet. So, and people gonna be
Yes.
tell me, oh, well, is this place haunted? Is that place haunted? You know what? This earth is old. It's
Yes.
old, and so
Yes.
just about every square inch of it, something has probably died, even if it's as minute as an insect.
Yes.
So you have a lot of different energies going on here. I mean, I think that the animals cross over, but my pets have actually come back to me, and from time to time, and I can feel them walking on the bed, and I think it's one of my cats that I have now. And I'll open my eyes and look, and no, there's
Nobody
none
there,
there.
huh? Yeah. I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
nobody there.
Yep. Yes. And I know exactly as far as because I myself I lost one of my dogs a few couple of months ago, and he was a bigger dog. He was a husky, and
Mhm.
every once in a while, out of the corner of my eye, um, I'll see like a flash of his fur, and I know it's none of my other dogs because all my other dogs are really small little dogs. So it's like
Mhm.
it rules out the, oh, it's one of my other dogs, because he towered over my other dogs, and his favorite thing was always to hang out with me under my computer desk and just you know stay in the air conditioning because
Yeah.
especially now in the heat. But yes, I understand exactly what you mean. Um,
Mhm.
and as a matter of fact, sometimes I have two big windows right in front of my computer desk. Sometimes I would let him out and I would close the door and he would come out of a chair and stare at me through the window like, hey, open the door, let me back in. And a couple of times I've seen what I thought was him. And again, it's none of my other dogs do that. He was the only one that would do that. That would look at me through the window like, hey, open the door. So I know I understand exactly what you mean about that. They come back like um and you said something also, Rhonda, which I thought was really interesting, which is uh
Hmm.
that you said you use the Reiki on live people, but also on spirits. If you could
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that, because I think that is so interesting.
Well, the whole reason that I wanted to learn Reiki, I'm a big animal lover. I
Hmm.
actually like animals more than I like most people.
I know what you
But
mean.
they love you unconditionally. So what can I say? But my cat, Kitty, was sick. She had lymphoma.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to make her as comfortable as possible, so I took Reiki level 1. Unfortunately, the day that I was supposed to get um, finalized my Reiki level 1, she had died.
Okay.
And but I do have my level 1 too, and I'm a master now at level 3. But that's the reason why I got into it, was because I wanted to help heal her.
Okay.
It was a day late and a dollar short with her, but I went ahead and went on to my next other levels and got certified.
Okay.
Well, my other cat, Lily, came down with oral cancer, and that's a kind of a slow cancer.
Oh.
Normally, they'll just starve to death rather than, because it just eats away at their mouth and then up to their brain
Oh my
eventually.
God.
Yeah. So she would have, and I'm one of these kind of people, and people tell me, "Oh my God, you should have your animal put down right away when it's." No, I let them tell me when it's time to go.
Okay.
If they want me to help them cross over, they tell me. Some animals, some of my pets would not let me go take them to the vet or have a vet come here. They hid and would not. They wanted to die on their own terms here. But anyway, Lily got the oral cancer. So with this, she would get these bouts of bleeding, and as it progressed, she would have more frequent bouts of the bleeding, and it would be more blood, and it would be a little bit longer. And the one time she got one, and normally it wouldn't bother her, but as she bled, it was awful. And she was walking around the house then because she was upset with it, and it wouldn't stop. So I'm like,
Oh.
well, wait a minute, I'm a Reiki master. So then
Hmm.
I did my symbols, and she came right over to me, sat down, and just stared at me and wanted it, and she accepted it, and the bleeding stopped. It turned right off just like a faucet.
Wow.
So that in itself made a believer out of me.
Hmm.
Of course, 2 weeks later, I did have to help her cross over at the vet because she was just starving.
Right. Exactly.
She did,
Exactly.
yeah, but that's what led me to be the Reiki master. Then what really turned me on was my teacher. She said, you can also heal spirits or ghosts or souls or whatever with this. You can do a past life healing on yourself. It's just not just a physical, ailment that you can heal.
Okay.
So that really turned me on because I was already a paranormal investigator. So
Hmm.
I do that now. I
Okay.
work with a wonderful, wonderful lady. She's a friend of mine. Her name is Terry, and she's a medium.
Okay.
And she and our technical person, Sharon, we three of us go in and we investigate. Um, but Terry and I will do healings together. She's big into the angel healing, and then I do the Reiki. And we have actually, worked on humans, but also we have cleared houses of ghosts that way. And it really actually does work. I mean,
Wow.
these people, one in particular, they could not get any satisfaction. It was working, whatever was in that house was working on their teenage daughter. This girl was a really good girl, and
Mm-hmm.
she just decided she wanted to start doing, things that weren't so good.
Yeah.
We went in there, we cleared the house. I used the Reiki and cleared it out that way, and these people have not had a problem since.
Isn't that, when, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Rhonda, because like you yourself said, even though you had been trained, you yourself had like, you wanted to prove to yourself this does work. And I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah, in other words, and based on the feedback, like you said, with your animal and the thing with within paranormal investigations, I think that is like such a useful tool because like you said, at the end
Mhm.
of the day, it's all energy. What we're talking about
Right.
is
Right.
a human soul, which is the energy that's left over when your body is not alive anymore.
Mhm.
And uh, I and you have it with that. Have you ever had to cross over any animals in? Have you ever gone to any paranormal investigation or any location? And you've come. I know that usually animals don't have the hangups with the dying part, but have you ever come across
Mhm.
anything like that with that you've used a Reiki on an animal that's in spirit form?
I haven't had to. No, I really don't run across a whole lot of animals. Um,
Okay.
I'm I'm a magnet to living animals. I mean, if there's an animal in the vicinity, it's gonna it's gonna
It'll end up.
migrate over.
Yeah, yeah, and it is. Isn't it
Over.
surprising how they know that when
Yeah.
animals?
Well, yeah. And one of my other jobs is I'm an animal care specialist, so I work at a nature center and I
Okay.
take care of snakes and other reptiles. But I mean, last year in my office, I had a baby skunk, a baby possum, and a baby rabbit
Oh,
that I rescued. All
oh.
three, I got them well, and they're out on their own now. So,
I think that is fantastic. Well, down here where I live at, we're having a problem with our snakes because, they've introduced invasive species into the Everglades.
uh
And
huh.
unfortunately, they're battling it out there because since it's become like a top predator in the Everglades.
Mhm.
The climate here is duplicates almost like where they come from, which is down in
Mhm.
South and Central America. So, unfortunately, a lot of people irresponsibly buy them as pets and then they let them go, which is a shame.
Yeah, that's sad. It's really sad because the animal in the long run is going to be the one that's going to have to suffer for it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Or they get, people just, sometimes they make rash decisions when it comes to pets, and especially something like a snake is like, just drive and drop it off, in the bush, and there, the next thing you know, um, what? Let me ask you, where you work at, what is it? People bring in their animals that they come across that they found, or things like that, and they bring them into where you guys are at.
No, it's county owned, and it's a nature center where we educate people on
Oh, okay,
nature and things like that. So we have animals, snakes, and things that are from our area
okay.
that kids can actually touch, and we get to teach them about them and how to respect them, and
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth like that. We have no venomous animals in there, or
Okay.
no venomous snakes. The only venomous thing we have is a tarantula, and she excuse me, she is not from the area, and
Right.
she's just so darn cute. We had to have her. She's beautiful. She's she's
Yeah.
a pink one.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And but we have rat snakes and corn snakes and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, and we don't have anything that can grow so big that you would have to have feed it a goat or anything
Oh
like
my God.
that.
You know what? That's another thing. I know that down here, people that have these constrictors, eventually you got to feed them. And I was like, just based on that fact alone, I mean,
Mhm.
right now we have a couple of what they call bearded dragons. And yeah, I feed they're omnivores, and I'll feed them like vegetables and little fruits and and mealworms
Mhm.
and crickets, and that's it. It's like no, I could never see myself feeding. No, no. But yeah, I know that once you start looking at these bigger snakes, you gotta like give them something to satisfy their appetite, and I'm not there.
Yeah.
But
Well,
so here you are. You're doing. It seems like you said, yeah, you're because of your ability to see plus the training that you have in Reiki, you are a magnet. Do you have you had any times where you have these spirits or ghosts like that they kind of like intrude? Because I've heard of sometimes that happening to people who are sensitive where all of a sudden you have a spirit or that wants to communicate like, and they're on their own timeline. They don't care if you're asleep. Have you ever had that experience?
I have. Um, Actually, on several occasions. One, which was really quite remarkable. I was in the movie theater with my husband, and all of a sudden I got the worst panic attack ever. My
Really?
heart was racing. I thought for sure this was it. I was having a heart attack. It was awful. I was to the point where I almost got up and walked out,
Hmm.
and I actually held out a little bit longer, and I finally did. I got up, I walked out into the lobby, and there was this guy out there. And
Okay.
he started talking to me. Well, it turns out that this poor guy, he had been suffering. He had lost a lot of his family, and he had just lost, I think it was his father had passed recently.
Okay.
And one of them were, and then when one started coming through, they all started coming through, and they throw these images in my third eye, and I'm thinking to myself, no, this guy's going to think I'm crazy by just saying whatever, and they won't leave me alone. So finally, I just mentioned whatever was in my mind, and he's like, "Oh my God, yes!" And I threw some names out. He said, "Yes, that was my brother that passed. Yes, that was my whatever."
Wow.
And I even and I can't remember what it was, but I recited a little saying,
Mm-hmm.
and he just stared at me, and he lifted his shirt up, and here was a four-leaf clover tattoo, and that exact saying was tattooed across it. And
Wow.
yeah, and
That's
so he was struggling with drugs. He really needed, I think, to hear from them.
okay.
So in extreme cases like that, I can't shut it off. I used to work at a bank,
Okay.
and certain customers would come in, and the images would start coming to me, and I couldn't say anything to them,
Yeah, because
or
they
else
would.
I
I
would have
can
gotten fired.
imagine.
So it was just driving me crazy, and it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop for days because that spirit knew that I could access the computer at work and find their address or their
Oh
phone number and give them
wow.
that message, and I couldn't do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it
They're
was,
like. Yeah.
and I
They don't
never
care about
did do it.
confidentiality. It's like.
Yeah, I never did do it, obviously,
Right.
but
No. No.
it was
And
it was
yeah.
all
They. Can you
it.
imagine?
I to the point where I had to quit my job.
Are you kidding me?
No, I
Wow.
quit. Yeah, I quit. Yeah, I couldn't take it.
Have you ever come across and I say that, sometimes when spirits have messages, it could be the most random, unimportant that you think is not that important, but to them it's very important. But have you ever come across any situation where you had a spirit that's telling you something disturbing and you're like, what do I do with this information now? Like,
Not so much with me now. My friend Terry does. She gets all kinds of stuff. Of course, she does this for a living.
okay,
Um, she's she does it every day of her life, and she was born into psychics and intuitive people as well. But I can tell you that about 20 years ago, no, maybe about 17 years ago, I found out I had a half brother, and
Wow.
I didn't know this before. Yeah. So we found him. It didn't. We became friends, but it didn't work out between my mom and him. So he left, moved somewhere, and I lost touch with him. Well, I was wondering about him and thinking about him a lot. This was then about 7 years ago. I started thinking about him more, and I just, when I was going on about my daily little chores around the house, I had the day off, so I was down in the basement. I was doing my laundry, and I heard footsteps upstairs, and I thought, what is my husband doing home? It's only noon time, and
Uh,
you know yourself. They're there. It just breaks your whole genre, and you can't get anything done.
yes, I know what
So,
you mean.
oh no, now there goes my cleaning. Well, I was doing my clothes. I folded them up. I put them in the basket, and I went to put my hand on the doorknob to go upstairs, and the door started shaking, and the knob was rattling to the point where the cat scattered. I mean, it was, and I thought to myself, that does it. I'm going to kill my husband.
Oh, you're still thinking it's your
And
husband?
it made me scream. I'm like, oh, you're in for it now. So I whipped that door open. He wasn't there. I ran up the stairs. No
Oh,
husband. Looked
oh,
out front. No car. So stuff like that started happening to me and happening to me. So for giggles, then I went online. I said, you know what? I'm going to just put his name in here and do a search. I put my brother's name in there and did a search. He died.
oh,
And he died right when that stuff started happening.
wow.
And it was him, I believe, because he was a jokester. So
Okay.
it was definitely him doing that. Because then when I discovered then that he had died, it stopped.
Right. It's almost like I want you to know. You would think. Right. Exactly. That's
Hmm.
really what it was. It's like, by the way, I'm not alive anymore.
Yeah, and it's sad. I mean, I wanted to really get to know him a lot more, but I'm glad at least I had the opportunity to
Sure.
meet him. But yeah, so yeah, but I mean, and I don't believe that he was a ghost doing that. I think he was a spirit doing that.
Right.
They
Yeah.
can
He
do
just
that
wanted
as well.
to like communicate with you and like let's put a let's end this chapter. Let me tell you, I'm not alive anymore. Now that you know, that's it.
I've
Wow.
actually seen people cross over. I saw my mother-in-law cross over. I saw my best friend, her son passed away suddenly of a heart attack, and I saw him cross over.
What was that like?
So, well, with him, I was still working at the bank, and normally on a Friday he would come by. He would come by the bank and get his check cashed every Friday. But that Friday, right after his funeral, and it was right after his funeral. I was the drive-through teller, and oddly enough, there was no one in the lobby. And normally on a Friday, it is packed. Not even my fellow employees; they went somewhere else. So I was by
Okay.
myself, and it just this hue of pink just engulfed the branch and the lobby, and I turned around and looked, and I saw him there, and he just smiled at me, and then I could see him fade away. Now I did smell like sort of like burnt cookies or like cotton candy smell,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and whenever I smell that, it's an indication that there's also angels around.
Okay.
So I think the angels were there crossing him, taking him over.
Okay.
And he just wanted to say goodbye to me because he knows that no one else in his entire family or friends would be able to see him except for me.
Sure.
And so I eventually I did tell his mom. I mean, when she was able to to embrace it. She's kind of religious, so they again the thing with the only ghost is the Holy Ghost
Right. No,
kind of thing. But
I know exactly what you were saying. And what happened? He died unexpectedly? He had what, like a heart attack? And
he had a massive heart attack, and he was only in his 30s.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. You're probably right. Yeah, he came to the one person who he knows she's going to be able to see me. So, yeah, I've heard of that before, and I absolutely understand that as
Mhm.
far as and and then you have the stories, what they call those crisis apparitions, where people
Mhm.
will see people, uh, and then later on they find out one, they see the person, let's say at home, where they know there's no way this person could be here, and then like within a few hours they find out that that person passed away. And I've heard that a lot, you know.
Mhm.
Um, as a
Mhm.
matter of fact, I remember I had a friend of mine, and she was a teenager, and she said her grandfather, as a matter of fact, he was in another country, and she says that all of a sudden she saw somebody like at the end of the hallway, where your bedrooms are, like if you have your bedrooms down the
Mhm.
hallway. She saw like somebody cross from like one bedroom to the other, like, and she says that her grandfather would always wear like a cowboy hat all the time.
Mhm.
And she says that when she saw somebody cross from one doorway into the other, she was like, like, you do that mind thing, like, that looks like my grandfather, but that can't
Right.
be him. Maybe it's somebody else in the house. And she says then, like, within a couple of hours, and she actually did see him in the hallway. Like, he stopped, and she looked at him, and she says that later on she told her mom, and she says that like later that evening they got a call that confirmed that he had passed away right around the time that she had seen him, in the house. And they never saw him again. And it's like what you said, like they almost come by to say goodbye, you know.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard of.
That a similar thing happened to me when I was little. I guess I was about 10,
Okay.
10 or 11. My grandmother, my dad's mom, I had a dream that she was in a coffin, had on a peach dress, and I went up to the coffin and looked at her, and I ran out. I was upset, and of course I woke up and I told my mother about the dream.
Right.
Well, a few months later, my grandmother got colon cancer,
Wow.
and she went into a coma, and she passed away. And I had never seen a dead person.
Mm-hmm.
She would have been my first. So when we went to the funeral home, I walked up to that coffin, and there she laid there, and she had on that peach dress,
So you
and
basically it
I
was.
got upset. Yeah, I got upset, and I ran out. I couldn't look at her anymore. But yeah, that kind of freaked me out. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that at all, because then you know, it's I don't like to predict somebody's demise or whatever. I
Yeah, it's almost what they
rather
call
it
that
be a
Cassandra
surprise.
effect, where, and I know that sometimes people that are sensitive or psychic, sometimes
Mhm.
when they're fine tuning their abilities for some reason, that's what they first start to sense, which is either deaths or tragedies or stuff because of the emotion. And then
Mhm.
I've known a lot of people that have drawn away or like said, I got to shut this down because it scares them. It's like you said, it's really unpleasant,
Mhm.
and like, hey, I don't want to work with this anymore. And then
Mhm.
because of that, let's face it, especially when you're able to foresee the death of someone in your family, somebody you love, that's got to be really, really difficult.
Yeah, it's disturbing enough for somebody
Hmm.
to, see somebody else like that, but with your
Right.
family members, it's like, no. Now, if it's something that they need to work on to make them healthier, then that's absolutely fine. I'm fine with that. But every once in a while, I'll see somebody, and it's just the way that I see them. It's like, wow, their time is limited, and I don't like doing that. And one of my animals, I mean, my animals could be perfectly healthy looking, and then I just get the feeling about one, and
Hmm.
sure enough, then I'll get this really gloom and doom feeling,
Right.
and then there it'll all heck will break loose, and
Right.
so I don't like that part of it. But
But
it's
it's like you
far
can't,
better be doing the ghost hunting.
and I guess it's like one of those things that it's just part of who you are. Let me ask you, have you ever run across, whether it's been on a paranormal investigation or just because you're at a certain place, have you ever run into something that's really, really negative that you're like, I'm out of here?
I get that way when I'm in a hospital.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I get that way when I am in a cemetery. Does not bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Although I can tell you this, one time, this was back when I was a teenager, and like I said, I was trying to turn it off, but I did keep my intuition going, so I knew right from wrong, what I should and shouldn't be doing. But
Okay.
one time, my boyfriend and I had to go to his grandparents' house because they went away for like a month, and so we had to check on, everything. And I had been to that house plenty of times before, but they had their electric turned off. So my boyfriend was going to check on everything, and I said, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I've been in the bathroom in that house many, many times. Of course, it was dark, but still.
Right.
Well, I ended up in this room, and I'm like, where am I? And I just got this really, really, really bad feeling that I should not be in that room. And honest to goodness, I know that spirits were just looking at me and just not wanting me there for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And finally he came into that room. He said, what are you doing in here? He said this, and I said, I know, I thought I found the bathroom. Well, he flashed his light. There was a whole line of portraits of ancestors lined up on the floor. And I mean, really, really old ones, like 1800.
Really?
Just
Wow.
staring at me. I'm like, oh, man, I don't even think I used the bathroom. I was like, let's get out of
Yes,
here. If
forget it.
everything's okay, take me to the
Yeah.
gas station.
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
want
Anything but here.
because that was really. But then again, I was still young, and although it came naturally for me, I didn't have anybody to help me with it.
Right.
So my parents, gave me that blank slate, but I didn't have anybody. I mean, I would
Right.
go to the library and try to find things, but there wasn't a lot back then on the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
So then when it started happening again to me when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I did get to, find books that would try to help me understand what I was going through, and
Right.
it made me feel comfortable knowing that I wasn't the only one out there that had similar experiences. I would read, I'm like,
Sure.
oh my God, like, yeah, I experienced it.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I saw. And yeah, and it made me feel really good. I mean, one of my first books that I started reading was Sylvia Browne's, and I did get to
Yeah.
see her a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I did get to see. Now, here's the thing about with John Edwards. My husband and I would watch his show, Crossing Over with John Edwards.
Right. Yes.
And I used to have a pet groundhog named Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
Had her for 10 years. Loved her. She was house pet, everything. And I told Joe, I said, if we ever get a chance to see John Edwards, all he has to do is mention Heidi, because that was my groundhog's name. Well, about a year or so, we got tickets to go see him down in D.C. This was after 9/11.
Okay.
And so we sat down. He said about, how he does everything, and then he started taking questions. He called upon or answered the lady right behind me. And that was the first question that he took, and she was asking him a question, and he stopped her. He said, wait a minute. He said, what's your name? She said, Heidi. And I was like, I looked at my husband, I was like, oh my God,
Ah,
that's all I asked was Heidi.
yes.
How many people have the name Heidi? But it was right after 9/11, so he really did a lot of other readings of people that had lost people,
Well, you
you
know
know.
what? And now that you mentioned that, I went to see him. It was again after 9/11. Not, it was already a few years after 9/11. I want to say oh
Uh-huh.
06, oh 07. I went to see him in Atlanta. And that was one of the things that I found, for regular, that there were so many people there that were there because they had lost a loved one, whether it was a child, that
Mhm.
if you were there for just without that, it was really
Mhm.
difficult for, even though he
Mhm.
did make mention of something about my grandfather, but people, and understandably, I know that a lot of these, especially if their parents are so desperate, okay,
Right. Mhm.
to get a reading, that he will say throw anything out, and they're like, yeah, yeah, that's me. And that was one of the things
Mhm.
that I was like, you know what, this is a little bit disappointing, because I understand where they're coming from. But
Mhm.
if you weren't there because I just lost a loved one recently, in other words, I
Mhm.
think everybody's had, some type of loss.
Right. Mhm.
Chances are that even if he picks up on something, one of these people are going to jump in and just take it over from there. So I know exactly
Yeah.
what you mean when you say that, people that go there, they're, especially after 9/11, I imagine that there was people there trying to get readings
Mhm.
for, if they had lost somebody at the trade center or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was.
Well, I do readings from time to time with people as well, but I couldn't imagine standing up there and giving a reading and doing readings for, oh my goodness, there was hundreds of people in there. That night it was packed.
Oh yeah, 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 exactly. It
So,
was, yeah, it was full. It's packed to, I mean, it was there was no empty seats. Let's put it that way. Where I was at, where I went to see him at,
mhm.
there was no empty seats. So yeah, in the sense of that, after that, it was like, you know what, I might as just well look at him on his TV show, and that's that. Because you know,
Well, I did get what I asked for. I asked for Heidi, and I got
no,
it.
yeah, I know, but it was like, wait a minute, but yeah, that's the thing. Unless you have something pressing, and I remember my boyfriend was with me, and I said, you know what, that he said that has to do with my grandfather, who had passed away, like by that time, like maybe 15 or 16 years before. And he
Mhm.
goes, but why didn't you say that? I said, you know what, there were these people that were like, that were clamoring over each other to, like, anything that he threw out there to apply to them. I said, you know what, they're in more dire need. These people lost a child. That was
Right.
not, I would say 90% of the time, that was, it's like, forget it. I'm not gonna try to, like, do battle with somebody for him to say something, because they're desperate. So, but yeah,
Right. Yeah. I
um,
can. Yeah.
it's like, and as a matter of fact, I'll be honest with you. I used to watch his show, and I stopped watching it because it was starting to get depressing, because there were so many
Mhm.
people there that had lost a loved one very recently. I said, I was seeing people cry, and I was
Right.
starting to cry, and I was like, I gotta stop this. I'm
Mhm.
getting too sympathetic about this whole thing. It was interesting, but after a while, I stopped watching the show because of that. Because I was being
Yeah.
too, I was like, you know what? And you would hear all these stories about these people losing, especially, when it's when it's an older person or a parent. It's like, it's, you feel bad, but it's like, this is an old person. But I would hear these stories about people losing children. Oh, or so I
Mhm.
was like, oh, forget it. I'm not watching this anymore. But yeah, I know what you mean, and
Yeah.
like you said, it is difficult to, you know, and as a matter of fact, I remember at the beginning of the show, he mentioned something like that. Oh, I have to laugh. I know you can't see this, Rhonda, because we're on the phone. But I have one of my
Mhm.
little dogs. I have a chair where I have all these little stuffed animals, okay? And
Mhm.
I'm watching her behind me through the camera, and she goes up there and she's sneaky. She knows she's not supposed to do this. And she takes one of these little stuffed toys off that thing. But she only does it when she knows I'm not watching her. And coincidentally, her name is
Aw.
Trouble. And now it's like,
Oh,
and I realize it because I'm looking behind me, behind my chair, and I see something moving, and it's like her going on the chair and pulling down one of the little stuffed animals. I'm telling you, animals. There's something else. It's like trouble, oh
oh.
trouble. But anyway, um, so now that when people do they contact you as when you go in there to do paranormal investigations, Rhonda? Do you go in there first, like do you do like a pre-interview? Do you have a team? How is it that you handle when people contact you that they want to have paranormal
Well,
investigation done?
mostly we do private homes.
Okay.
And of course, we do not charge for this service.
Okay.
We go in, it's the three of us, and we do have some equipment. I carry a little called Ghost on the Go kit
Mhm. Yeah.
that has some of my equipment in it. I use both. I use electronic equipment, but I also use like divination equipment,
Okay.
which like dowsing rods,
All right.
pendulum, that kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Okay.
We'll go in there, and of course we'll talk to the people, and a lot of times it's not even a haunting at all. It's something to do with the person. Like the last case that we were on,
Mhm.
it was more he was drawing them in, and he actually has this bright soul that actually likes to heal. I mean, he he's like a, well, some people refer to him as Michaelites, but
Mhm.
he just these souls gravitate towards him, and even living people gravitate towards him
Okay.
for help. He's just those types of people.
Okay.
So but every case is different. So what we do is if it is a haunting of some
Okay.
description, we will clear the house for them.
Mhm.
Some people don't want it cleared,
Yes, I know. I
and
know.
that's okay too. But chances are they're going to want, the energy level changed in there, and we will change the energy level for them, get whatever is in there out of there,
Okay.
and school them on how they can help protect themselves from further invasion of things like that. Now, with the instance with that guy, I mean, he's obviously going to have to learn how to live with his abilities and
Like,
how to get them a little bit, better and use them. So, but every case is different. And we're working with one man, and he just would not listen to anything that we had to say.
and
And he just kept putting it on and drawing more and more to him. And he was almost to the point where he was possessed. And there was nothing we could do about it because he would not listen.
well,
And then you have the people that get you in there, and then as soon as you're out, another ghost group comes in, which is not a good thing to do.
yes, I've run
Because
into those scenarios. Yeah.
some of these ghost groups, we actually come in afterwards because they open up these portals
Mhm.
and don't close them, and then
Yes.
you've got more problems because oftentimes people say, "Oh my God, I had them in here, and it just got worse."
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because they didn't know what they were doing, and they didn't close the
Absolutely.
portals.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's what we do. We come in there, we close it, we suggest to them what they should do. Like one of the major things that I suggest people to do is eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle. Eat healthy,
Exactly.
get your sleep, plenty of water, drink plenty of water, lemon water especially. But you also need to start up your chakras and cleanse them and align them daily, so that your aura can be nice and strong, and that, of
Mm-hmm.
course, is your force field, and will keep, unwanted spirits, entities, or whatever away.
Exactly.
The higher your vibrations get,
Mm-hmm.
the stronger you're going to be. Now, if you get into like the demon level and things like that, they have a very, very low vibration.
Yes.
You raise your vibration above them, way above them, they're not even going to be able to touch you. I tell people time and time again, light will, erase darkness every time.
Well, I'm sure
And
you've
my
seen
biggest
that in energy that like attracts like, almost like.
right, right. My biggest motto is education replaces fear.
Yes.
Number one, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. You're lowering your energy
Mm-hmm.
level, your vibrations rather, and then you're susceptible to any kind of, lower vibrational thing,
Yes.
which they're pretty negative. Raise it up. Don't show it fear. Do whatever you have to. You don't have to. A lot of people say the Lord's Prayer, or
Right.
they'll pray the Rosary, or whatever you believe in.
Right.
Start doing that because it raises your vibration. It makes you feel good. Turn on good music. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Raise the vibrations of the house. Salt water. I use the heck out of salt water. I love lavender. Eat it. Sprinkle it around your house. Grow it outside in your yard.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you something. And I totally understand what you're saying. And I've run across this where you said something really important, where people fear and
Mm-hmm.
almost they give up control. That the fear overcomes everything, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like it's a vicious circle where that fear drives them giving up control, and they feel very helpless. And then, of course, you know, this is their house or the place they live or whatever, and it's like they
Mm-hmm.
almost like let it take over and dominate their living space and how they live their lives. And I run that across that where I say, I understand about the scared stuff, or sometimes you experience things that you're like, or the feelings that you get depending on what's happening there. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, this is where you're supposed to be. You're a living
Right.
incarnated being, and this is your plane. So the one that's supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
running the show here is you. And
Right.
I come across where a lot of people just like they just kind of step back and feel very helpless, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because and I'm gonna blame some of the shows that out there. They make it always everything is like the nth degree of bad, and I say no.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even if it is a legitimate paranormal occurrence, it's not always going to be. I'm gonna use the D word, demonic. You know,
Right.
it could just be a lost ghost spirit. I mean, whatever. It doesn't all, but everybody, unfortunately, they go to the worst case scenario. And it's like, stop
Mm-hmm.
with that. You're making it worse as a matter of fact because of the energy you're giving off, which is fear. Uh,
Right.
and I mean, I've seen, but I've gone in on investigations where, yeah, they might have something happening, but the anxiety that they're living, they put themselves under, it makes it 10 times worse than what it actually is. And like
Right.
every
And you
little
can
creak and groan in the house, it's like, oh my God. And it's like, no, that's just a creak and a groan. That's it.
we've actually come across people that would manifest things like that. They would bring that
Yes.
energy and make things happen like that.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's not anything. It's not a ghost. It's not a demon. It's them.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you can't explain it to them. And the one of my pet peeves about the ghost hunting shows
Hmm.
is that they go in there, they're looking for a ghost, they're trying to obtain evidence, and when they get it, they get scared brainless. And they,
Okay.
they run out or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
when they're running out, that's when I want to run in.
Exactly.
As
That's
long
what
as
you're
I
there for.
as long as I know it's not a human idiot in there that wants to try to play,
Exactly.
you know, Jason on me or something like that,
Yes.
I'm going in there. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going in there after it.
Yeah.
I don't want to run. I want to find out what it is, and I want to figure out, exactly what's going on.
Exactly.
Try to help it if I can. Maybe it's trying to get a message across. Maybe it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want people there, or maybe they do want people there and they're just giving it a show. Who knows, for whatever reason. And
Yes.
the demons, I do believe that they do exist. I believe in angels. I believe in fairies. But let me tell you, it's all energy again.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, put the little devil figure to it, that energy, or the angel
Mm-hmm.
with wing figure to it, or whatever, the
Right.
little fairy. But it's
Mm-hmm.
all, at the end of the day, it's all energy.
Yes. I agree with you.
It's all about raising your vibrations and so on and so forth. But see, demons sell. I love to go watch a good ghost movie, but it always just about turns into a demon,
Have you noticed?
and I
It's
hate that.
like it's always. That's why I said I'm going to use the D word because it's like, come on, folks. It's like, and I guess it gets to the point where the scarier the better. What's more scarier than something that's non-human? And I
Uh-huh.
said, yeah, I go in my experience, like you said, it's not that it doesn't exist, but I said, you know what? In my experience, when you're talking something that's demonic or non-human, that's the phrase I like to use better, non-human. Even though there's a lot of
Mhm.
other entities besides demonic that are non-human,
Right.
I said
Mhm.
usually what their aim is, which is destruction and corruption.
Right.
They do it a lot. They're not they don't want to be chased out, so they kind of like go in there a lot slower and low profile. Okay, than
Mhm.
making you spit out green soup and walk backwards or something like that. You know, I tell
Right.
them, believe me, and I tell people, and I've had situations where, because I am a trained hypnotherapist, and I do work with spiritual attachments, and I have had cases where people have had attachments that were non-human,
Mhm.
and uh, you'd be surprised where the point of origin was. Sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years before. Okay, maybe by the time that that person crossed paths with me, it's their life has been unraveling for years.
Mhm.
And then when you talk and you go back, you find like what I call patient zero or the point of origin. And I said, you know what?
Mhm.
Like Hollywood always makes it think like 3 days later, everything is falling apart, or you're talking in language, in tongues or whatever, all this stuff that's supposed to happen to you when you're possessed. And I go, you'd be surprised what will happen and how long it takes. But where it takes you is basically that you're a miserable human being and your life has unraveled, and everything has become undone. Which, by the way, I'm not saying all human beings, we have ups and downs. Good things happen and
Right.
bad things happen, and that's normal. That doesn't mean there's anything demonic attached to you, but it's where you see a consistent flow downwards. And I said,
Right.
yeah, I do believe in that. But you made a very, I think it starts also a lot with the fear and then the anxiety, and then it snowballs from there as far as what ends up happening. Um,
Oh, it can get the sheer imagination.
oh
Imagination
yeah.
can really run wild.
Le-
But let me tell you, if I run into anything that makes me gravitate, I'm keeping it, because then I'm going to be starting to fly, and I do not want to use my car anymore.
I'm t- Let me ask you something, Ron. And this is to me. You made some. You were talking about the chakras, and one of the things
Uh-huh.
that I think, and you made mention about clearing chakras. What advice do you
Hmm.
give people about being grounded? Because I think a lot of people also and I think especially if your lifestyle is very hectic,
Hmm.
which unfortunately, it's hard not to do it, especially, nowadays everybody's trying to multitask.
Right.
What advice do you give people as far as grounding themselves and what it does as far as your chakra and things of that nature?
Well, I just, like I said, I do go on YouTube, wonderful YouTube, and you can just look up, for chakra balancing.
Okay.
And there's a lot of wonderful ones, little videos out there that 20 minutes, and you can do it. And that
Excellent.
will really, really help you. Yoga will help you. Meditation helps you.
Yes.
Any of those things like that
Yes.
will. And I walk barefoot a lot too.
There
I
you
love
go.
love
That's what
doing
I was gonna say. Yes, because yes, I've heard of that. That is really really important. People don't realize that's very helpful. When you're a kid, you do
it.
it a lot, but when you grow up, everybody's always around. You don't do it as
Yeah,
often.
I can't stand wintertime because then my feet are too cold and
Oh
I
no,
have
yeah.
to wear shoes even in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that problem. You're down in Florida
No,
than me.
let me tell you something. It's either here it's hot or hotter, and that's it. But
It's really hot here too today. It's humid. We're having the Florida weather today.
well, yeah, and over here it's like it'll just like I said, over here you have a sweater and it'll last you 20 years because you'll wear it like maybe 5 times throughout the winter because it's and it's really funny because here the few times that it ever gets kind of cold, when I mean cold like in the
Mhm.
50s or which is rare, you see people like with four
Uh-huh.
layers of sweaters because nobody ever really has a coat here. So people like
Uh-huh.
layer and layer and layer and you see people walking around like, "Oh, it's so cold." And it's like but yeah. But as a matter of fact, when you said that thing about I had a friend of mine who her dad had a really bad stroke. And one of the things that the doctor ordered him to do was to walk around barefoot outside in the yard. And I was like, see, that doctor probably had some type of holistic background where he understood, besides the Western medicine approach of like
Right.
the therapies or the whatever medicines he was taking. He told me every day I want you to go outside barefoot and walk around in your yard. And he would do it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
you brought up a good thing here. Well, medications, prescribed medications. A lot of them will, when it's taking care of one ailment for you, it's creating another one. So you really, really have to. It's very important to align your chakras when you're on different medications like that and ground yourself and drink, adequate amount of water. A lot of people do not hydrate themselves enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It flushes out just more than just physical stuff. I mean, it helps you with flushing out emotional things as well and spiritual things.
I think that
And
is
blessing your water before you drink it. Raising the vibrations in that water is a plus for you to do.
I love that. I love that because you know what? We've all heard, everybody like, that yeah, that hydration. But Rhonda,
Hmm.
you bring up something which I think is so important, which is exactly what you said, where when you're flushing out your body, it's not only like of toxins or whatever out of your human, your organic body, but
Hmm.
also like you said that if you bless the water, you're also working on an energy and spiritual level because get things can get clogged up on those levels as well. And if
Hmm.
you have that intention, which is what you're describing, and I think people don't realize that you don't have to be clergy to bless things. You can do it.
No, you don't.
Okay, my little dogs here are having a moment here. Shush, be quiet. Because they're
Yeah,
like
my
little
cat.
kids. My dogs are like, when children they want to play underfoot, they got to be.
Uh
Well, my
huh.
dogs are like that. They got to play, but they got to do it right next to me. Go away, guys. Shh. But yeah, I think that is uh, I love that you brought that up. I love it
Yeah,
because
with Reiki, you can do that. We of course, whatever method that you use. I mean, you use angels to bless your water,
hmm
but Reiki, I bless my water with the Reiki energy and my food. I try not to eat a lot of red meat.
right.
Try to incorporate more vegetables and stuff like that. Especially if I'm going to be doing any kind of readings or if I'm going to an investigation, I won't eat any meat at all because I don't want that vibration. Especially red meat will lower your vibrations.
Okay.
I want my vibrations higher. So if you want your vibrations higher, you're going to have to eat lighter, which is fruits and vegetables, lots of water.
Absolutely. So, Rhonda, if anybody wants to, I mean, I'm going to include the link to your website on the credits of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody wants
Mm-hmm.
to get a hold of you either for an investigation or for a reading, let me ask you, do you, besides readings, do you do any Reiki work if somebody asks for that?
I do. As a matter of fact, the end of this month, I'm going to be doing Reiki on animals.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I like doing the animals a lot more than people,
okay.
but I do teach. I do teach. I can teach and certify people
Okay.
in Reiki. Um, I also, with my friend Terry and Sharon,
Uh-huh.
we have a little show on Facebook. We do Facebook Live. It's called The Haunted View.
Okay. Okay.
And so it's like The View, but it's The Haunted View, and people call
Hey.
in and ask us questions and stuff.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll put a link to that as well. So how often do you have that show, or do you announce it on Facebook that you're going to be doing
We
that?
announce it.
You announce it? Okay.
We announce it on Facebook, and plus we do it like once a month. We try
Okay.
to get together once a month and do it.
Perfect. That's great. So that,
So
yeah,
the
that,
next one is going to be the 22nd of this month, I think.
okay, so that's going to be in about 4 or 5 days. Okay. All right, that's fantastic. But the
Well,
best thing is to hook up with you guys
maybe.
on
Yeah, it is.
Facebook,
Yeah.
because you guys, what, you announce it beforehand, what the dates are going to be that you're going to have that show?
Yeah, it should be Tuesday the 22nd at noon.
Okay. Okay.
That's what we set it for,
And
unless
what is it? Do
something.
you do you do readings as far as like from a psychic point of view, or is it, do any of you guys use any type of divination tool? How is it that you do the readings?
That is just a show where people will ask a question. We don't do any readings on the show,
Oh, okay.
but people have Facebooked me,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever spirit gives me the urge, I will go and look, and whichever one that they want me to do, I will do that, and I will give them a reading. And I don't charge for the reading because I don't do it for a living, and I don't do it all the time.
Right.
But just for those that really need it, I
Okay.
do. But Terry, on the other hand, she does do them for a living, and
Mm-hmm.
she does charge, but she's very reasonable, and she does I think online readings as well as
Okay.
on the phone. But she also has her little um,
Right. Okay.
office that she does
Where
readings
she does
for as
readings,
well.
and
But
and I can see where there's people that I know sometimes that you develop relationships with them where, once they find somebody that gives them an accurate reading, they don't want to lose touch with that person, because in your case what you were saying is, you only do that when you feel like the urge or something, or there's a communication that you feel that needs to be made. But your friend sounds like, since she does it on a consistent basis, you know,
hmm
if there's clients out there that they find somebody that they really work well, they're happy to be able to get back to this person, and
hmm
and continue to work with them. So yeah, absolutely. Oh, my dogs! I'm telling you. Okay, thank you so much, Rhonda. It has been great. I loved having somebody like a Reiki master and a teacher uh, to interview and talk about not only the paranormal, but how important energy is into everything, whether it's, you know, going into paranormal work or even just on our daily lives, uh,
Mhm.
because that impacts basically what we call to ourselves or what we experience, what we manifest, in
Mhm.
other words. It doesn't always
Right.
have to be
Yeah.
the ghost. It's also just what we bring into manifestation, because this is the energy that we're putting out. Okay. And, you know, sometimes people don't realize that, especially if it's negative, which, and I know unfortunately, a lot of people, myself included, fall into this pattern of
Mhm.
over worrying, because, we kind of think where it's going to prepare us, which it doesn't. But
Mhm.
sometimes what we do is we're actually aiding in manifesting and bringing to reality what we don't want to have
Mhm.
happen, you know.
Right.
And we don't give it ourselves enough credit as human beings of how powerful we are when it comes to energy work, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and it works against you. And that advice that you said about the water, I'm telling you, I'm the
Mhm.
first one that I have to remind myself, like, go drink some water, go drink some water, go drink some,
And bless your water before you make
and
your
bless
ice
the
cubes if you
water.
have an ice tray.
Yes, yes, yes,
But it's see that's why I'm not just a ghost hunter. I'm a paranormal investigator. It's a wide spectrum
yes.
of things. I mean, this world, and it's beyond this world, is the universe. I mean, it's so much to it. And I could
Mm-hmm.
actually go on, and you and I both could go on and on and on and on and on. I mean, I've 20 plus years experience with this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've seen all kinds of stuff, and I'm going to see more. Do I have all the answers?
Oh no.
Absolutely not. I don't want all the answers, and we're not supposed to know everything.
Yeah.
If we knew everything, we wouldn't need to be here.
Let me tell you something.
But I'm just out there to try to help people. So,
You know what? The way I look at it is like you always have to consider yourself the student. Okay. Because
right.
like you said, there's always something else that you need to learn. And I think as human beings, whether you like it or not, you're going to be learning until the day you call it quits, or what I call, you take the dirt nap.
Mhm.
Sometimes the lessons are not that
Mhm.
pleasant, but yeah, we keep learning, and those things about, oh, we get older and wiser. Yeah, you might be wiser, but you're still learning all the way to the end. I think, in my beliefs, that and
Mhm.
that's what makes life interesting, messy, but very
Yeah.
interesting.
And
Again,
and I
Rhonda,
tell you,
it was
with all
so.
the fighting and stuff going on, I think there's a lot of young spirits around. So.
Oh, and let me ask you, do you? I've had, I've had people say to me, "Oh, well, do you think that there's more spiritual activity, you know or do you think it's
Mhm.
because now that they have all these shows that everybody?" And I said, well, partially, yeah, but I said, look, back after the Civil War, when spiritualism developed, because people, for the same reasons, were anxious to contact their loved ones that they had lost during the Civil War, spiritualism took
Mhm.
off. um, and that, yeah, that there's people that are more open to it. Yeah, it could be part of it. Uh,
Mhm.
I think that, yeah, that whether it's a spirit or a ghost, I don't think it's that there's more now. Yeah, that's more popular. Yeah, of course. But I just think, to be honest with you, that spirits or discarnates are always around us all the time, not more so
Mhm.
than before.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
and, and I know for some people it's very disturbing to think of that
Mhm.
there's there's an unseen world around us. And you made a very good point, that that's why it's so important to have a strong aura um,
Mhm.
around you, because, and also when you made that mention of going to hospitals, because you will have spirits uh, that are not bound to certain places. So you could have an experience at any point. It doesn't have to be just because
Right.
you go to a haunted house. But yeah, you know, uh, that maybe now the people are, how can I say, like, when you said you were a teenager, you were growing up and you realized, I got to keep a low profile on this, or I'm going to be the loneliest person in the school. Now I think
Mhm.
it's a little bit more accepted, where if you're a teenager, and you say that you see dead people, you're not going to lose your friends.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
times have changed with that respect.
yeah, yeah. But that also has a negative side to it because I think sometimes they start dabbling in things they shouldn't.
Yeah,
And
and then you got the people that are faking pictures and faking things and
oh,
putting it on, the media,
oh yeah.
multimedia and stuff, and that
Mhm.
gives us a bad,
Oh sure,
reputation. And
sure.
of course, it's not mine. I do have a few apparition pictures, um, and I can swear by them. But really, really,
Well, I
unless
think
you were
it's
there when the picture was taken, or you took the picture yourself, or you obtained the evidence yourself, you're going to have doubt, and you should.
of course.
You should not take everything with a, for grant, for
N-
face value. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's yeah.
Well,
You should always have some sort of a doubt.
well, I think it boils
So.
down to what is your motivation. If your motivation is
Mhm.
notoriety, yeah, you are going to make up stuff or you're going to take something that's like it could be anything. God, that's not a face, that could be, or are you in it because you really really want true validation? And I think that when you're motivated because you want the real stuff, you have very high standards before you could say,
Mhm.
"Wow, that is whatever," like a picture like you said that there's just no way to explain this uh by natural means. And you yourself, it's you're basically you're in it to satisfy this maybe this desire to for yourself. Like if nobody ever sees this, hey, it doesn't matter because I understand what this is about. It all depends, I guess, where you're coming from. But I absolutely agree with you that there's people out there that it's like I mean I've seen some pictures that there's a figure in the window and I'm like, no, it could maybe it's a finger, but it could be a reflection, it could be a curtain, it could be a number of things. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I always say, nah, yeah, okay, maybe, but maybe not. And when I have that maybe
Mhm.
not, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't muster. It doesn't pass the test of using it as
Mhm.
evidence of you know, of anything paranormal or supernatural or anything like that. And
Well,
I do know,
check.
like you said, that that does exist. There is another world out there, an unseen world, a
Right.
spirit world.
Mhm. With
Yeah.
check this out, and I'll go over it briefly with you. But um, 20 years ago, when I everything started awakening with me,
Mhm.
I started searching for ghost groups, people that I could relate to and stuff. And so I went to this thing in Charlestown, West Virginia,
Mhm.
and we were investigating a restaurant. Well, I
Okay.
was taking pictures and stuff like that. Got a few orbs, nothing fabulous. Sent them to the lady that was running the group. She sent them back to me, and she says, "Well, you missed the faces in the mirrors and in the windows." Well, she made these little googly-eyed faces. She did it herself. She put them on my pictures. Thus, and
And
I'm
you're
like,
like,
"Are
wait
you
a minute.
kidding me?" I have the memory stick, and it was my camera that took them, and my original pictures did not have those on there.
Yeah.
So I just walked away from that group. I had no more respect for it or all of her
Oh,
other pictures that she had. And I don't believe in people out there doing that to naive
yes.
people that are actually trying to reach out because they're experiencing these things and want to know more, or they're scared and they need help understanding. It's just wrong in every way.
And
Just wrong. And I will never ever do anything like that.
well, and
Ever.
the flip side of that though, Rhonda, is this. That I mean, I understand this whole thing of, now they've got a gazillion million different pieces of equipment that you can look at, you can measure it, you can
Mhm.
whatever. And I said, that's all great. That's if that's your thing. However, if you go into something and you just don't happen to capture anything that you could basically show, that does not mean there's nothing there either. You could very
Mhm.
definitely have an entity or supernatural something going on there and maybe the equipment doesn't pick it up, you don't get the picture or anything. That does not mean because it's
Right.
almost like well, if you can't quantify it, if you can't photograph it or capture an EVP, then there's nothing there. And it's like,
Right.
not really, you know.
right? Well, that's why a lot of they will hide from you sometimes. If
Yes,
they're
of course they
intelligent,
do.
sometimes they will hide from. But that's where Terry and myself and Sharon were all three sensitive, and we give readings and stuff like that, so we can pick up on them anyway. That's what sets
Yes.
us aside from your normal or other ghost groups. But yeah, I mean, they will hide from you, but then sometimes they will also contact us ahead of time and try to actually physically make us feel sick so we won't go.
Oh my God,
I've
I am
had
so glad
I've
you are
had dreams.
mentioning that because I've said that so
Oh,
many times.
I've had horrific nightmares. My
Uh-huh.
friend Terry, she we were getting ready to go on an investigation. She said, "You won't believe it." She said she had a ceiling fan in the pool thing. Well, the fan wasn't on. All of a sudden, the pool thing started going wacky by itself,
Yes.
and she just tells her to get the hell out of the house
You,
and leave her alone. I mean, she's so used to this stuff anymore. But I do my raising my vibrations, and I'll Reiki myself to make me feel better. But we just keep on pushing on until we get to the house, and then they sort of back down.
and you know what?
But yeah, they will try to manipulate you like that. And let me put something else out here before I forget about it. I have Lyme disease, and I have a memory issue sometimes. But and now I just forgot it. Oh my golly.
Well,
Yeah, just like that, I forgot it. I forgot
don't
what I
worry.
was
Let
going to
me.
say.
I'm gonna and you tell me if it comes back to you. But only somebody that's worked in this field for a while identifies what you just did. Okay, which is that sometimes even
Mm-hmm.
before you might even get called in a case, things start happening. Or sometimes everybody
Right.
thinks that the stuff starts going on when you get to wherever it is that you're going. And I'm like, no, no. Especially if you have a truthfully, you have an intelligent haunting going on. Um, they're kind of ahead of the curve on it. And they start doing stuff to the people that are going to go out there just to hopefully
Mm-hmm.
and I said the same thing how many times have I had people say, yeah, 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 oh, come out quick, oh, it's the end of the world, and then they'll call you like a couple of, oh no, we're
Mm-hmm.
not, we can't, and I was like, I expect it all the time, because if they can't do it to the investigators, they will do it to the people that live there. They try to detour that what I call an intervention sometimes. As a matter of fact, that was sometimes my heads up going into a case that there was something there because stuff was happening. It was like, okay, even though I'm going to keep this to myself, I can tell something is probably there because all these things are happening. Um, whether it's shadows or dreams or it could be a number of things. That was my heads
Mm-hmm.
up. It's like, thanks, you just told me that this is not some people having wild imagination to this place I'm going to. So I'm glad you brought that up. Only a
Well,
seasoned
yeah.
paranormal investigator is aware of that.
Yeah. And trust me, I've seen a lot, and I'm sure I'm going to see more. I walked into one house. It was people using heroin. I mean, I could pick up on it. People had died from it. And
Mm-hmm.
and when you're doing drugs like that, you sort of spirits that have had overdoses and things like that
Right.
will gravitate toward you,
Yes.
and you're just opening yourself up,
Mm-hmm.
and just more and more and more, and then you want more and more drugs, so you go down and down and down, and your vibrations are lower, lower, lower. Alcohol too. And another thing that I've seen too is sometimes sensitive people don't know how to deal with it. They
Mm-hmm.
won't reach out for help, and so what they'll do is they'll turn to alcohol, they'll turn to drugs, so they
Yes.
can deal with it to shut it off, and it doesn't shut it off. It makes it worse.
Yes. And
So yeah,
and
and
a
you
lot of
can,
people don't. Yes, I have run across that frequently, more than people think. More than that's which is when I told you earlier about like attracts like, and
hmm
it's that's why it's so important what kind of energy you put out, even if you have to forcibly make your like work on it, like,
hmm
so if you're not really feeling happy, like, try to do something happy, and people allow themselves to fall into a funk, and but they make no attempt whatsoever to get out of it. And I was like, there's more reasons that you're just trying to be happy why you should do that. Because
Mhm.
out there, there's a lot of, if you persist in it. Don't get me wrong. Hey, there's times when you're sad and like it's like, feel it and deal with it and then move on. But there's people that unfortunately they
Mhm.
wallow in it, and they kind of like stay emotionally there in that pit long after they should attempt to get out of it. And then, like you said, they kind of attract energies to them that starts to, hey, before maybe you were sad, now you're going from sad into being really sad, and then all of a sudden you're depressed, and
Mhm.
you're like, wow, okay, how did that get here? So yeah, I totally understand what you're
Mhm.
talking about there when
And
it comes to stuff like that.
I've done readings and people that have they were ghosts or crossed over. Aha, aha, aha! I got it now. Ghosts with draining your equipment. Ghosts do not drain equipment.
Okay.
Ghosts will drain your body. This is how you can tell. A ghost will drain your energy because they're closer to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're right in between you and a spirit, your energy and a spirit. They're going to drain your energy. They're going to suck the energy out of you so they can have energy to manifest or do whatever they want to do. A
Right.
spirit, however, will drain the energy of equipment, and they will also interfere with electronic equipment and things like that, because it's a higher vibration,
Yes.
and that's how they tap into that. Now, a ghost will, when they're walking past a piece of equipment, maybe a light or something like that, can make it flicker. But they're
Yes.
not going to drain your batteries dry or whatever like that. So that's one thing that you can determine the two between the two. If you're feeling drained, pretty much a ghost. If you're just freshly juiced batteries that died on you, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much a spirit.
And that's a good observation on your part. That's very interesting. Okay, that's very interesting because everybody chalks it up to just a ghost,
Yeah,
and they don't
I
realize
actually.
that is very, very
So
interesting.
if you want to,
Yeah, basically what you're saying is we're batteries. We are batteries. We're energy. We produce energy.
this is bad of me, but when I was doing my ancestry and I found my great grandparents' grave, and right beside of them was her daughter, and I actually got a picture of her coming out of the tombstone. It was remarkable. It was the day after Christmas, but anyway, I make my husband go with me to these cemeteries when I'm
Uh-huh.
looking for my ancestry and everything, because you never know who's going to be around.
Oh, sure.
And and so sometimes when they want to manifest like that, they'll drain his energy. And the day that we the day that we got that picture, we were it was early in the evening. We were gonna go home and take showers and go to the movies later on. That he couldn't go. He was too tired
It's like, yeah, I want
because
to go take a
you
nap.
know she drained him. Yeah, she drained him. But it was worth it because I got a picture of her face. It's
Wow.
pretty awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, that drain of energy or that feeling tired that sometimes people experience. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe you do need vitamins, but it might also mean that you've got some type of spirit that's using you the ever ready bunny.
Mm-hmm.
That's see, like I said, only seasoned paranormal investigators know about this stuff because after a while you start going into the scenarios and you start figuring things out. Um, and you
Mm-hmm.
also something that you said really earlier, Rhonda, about that, you know, that you have groups that go into people's houses when they don't know what they're doing, and sometimes they open up
Mm-hmm.
portals. They do things that then the people that live in that house are like, "What happened?" I mean, this went from bad to horrible. and I've had that
Yeah.
before. And
Yeah.
I mention it, the same way that I tell people, as a group, you need to sometimes consider who you're going to do an investigation for, especially if, you know, you either feel that it's not safe for whatever reason because of the living people.
Hmm.
I tell people the other
Right.
way around. I said, you know what? If you don't feel right about a group, don't don't like don't bring them in. There's people out there sometimes,
Right.
unfortunately,
Right.
that they say that they have experience in the paranormal and working with this, and they really don't. And then these poor
Hmm.
people are stuck in that house or wherever it is that they're living, and they're like, oh
Hmm.
my God, what do I do now? So yeah, I've run across that quite a few times. Quite a few
Well, here's
times.
the thing: when you go in to talk to them, you need to figure out what it is first.
Exactly.
If it's not a ghost situation,
Mm-hmm.
then if 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 you don't figure that out already before you go in, and then you start investigating, you're going to open up portals, and then they're going to have whatever problem they were experiencing, and they're going to have whoever wants to just dance through that portal.
Mm-hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
then you've got it's compounded. Then you're going to have a lot of activity. So you really need to thoroughly you know have a discuss what's going on with them and figure it out and get a good idea of what's going on before you go
Sure.
and investigate. And I recommend highly that people do not investigate their house. I don't care what, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can be used as an object to communicate with a ghost or a spirit.
Yes.
If you have the intention, then the intention makes it that's the difference.
Right.
If you take a camera and you're taking a picture of your friend, that's fine. But if you have your camera and you say, okay, who is here? I want to get your picture, blah, blah, blah. And that's the
Exactly.
intention. Now you're opening up, you're sending out an invitation into anything.
Right, and
So
because
you
and
have to,
everybody thinks of the Ouija board as being the bad guy and all this, and that's an excellent point that you're making, Rhonda, about that.
right,
Anything can be used.
anything. Right. I have two Ouija boards. If you know what you're doing with
Oh
them,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's fine.
Sure.
And but yeah, I don't do any of that in my house. I cleared it out, and I don't want any activity because when I first started doing this, I had hitchhikers follow me home.
Yes.
I had, oh my golly, things going on, growling in my bedroom in the middle of the night. I had little lights flashing on and off, zooming around the
Yeah.
room. I had all kinds of
Yes.
stuff. My husband saw it, and our stereo came on at the foot of the bed and blew purple and green and blue sparks out of it, and then the VCR started going on and off really fast. And right before that, I saw a man standing at the bed, and my husband, I never seen him get ready for work so fast and leave.
Oh,
He
it's
was
like,
almost a ghost himself. He turned white.
honey, I'm going to work. You're on your own.
I begged him to stay home because it was like really, I mean, it was getting bad, and they would follow me into the bedroom because that's where I would go to sleep, and when you're
Mm-hmm.
sleeping, you're vulnerable.
Yes.
And so I had to and then I started reading books, and I read Sylvia Browne's book, and she said, you have angels, ask them. They can't help you. They don't have free will like you do. You have to ask
You have
them,
to
and you
ask
have
them
to bless
exactly.
them and send them love.
Yes.
And I did that, and as soon as I did that, they stopped.
Yes. Yes. But
So
unfortunately,
it's
there's a lot of
so much
people that
more.
don't. They start. That's what I said. They start um, doing stuff without really being informed, and
Hmm.
then they don't do even what you did, which is like, okay, I got it. They're just like that. They make it keep making it worse, or especially the teenagers
Hmm.
nowadays is like, oh come on, guys, I still remember what it's like to be a teenager that you think of, oh, but yeah, they got to be really careful doing some of that stuff because especially if you're looking for the big scare, because yeah, you might get that and a lot more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's more to it. That's why I'm out here. I have my website and Facebook thing, and I try to help. educate people as much as I can. I do lectures. I've
Well,
actually given ghost hunting classes just to educate people, and I do the Reiki classes as well. And part of that is when they reach level 3 or level 2, to help them be able to, maybe do past life healing for themselves, and on spirits if they want to do that. But it's a lot more to it than just going to go and take a picture and hopefully you got a ghost. I mean, that's fine if you want to go to ghost groups and go on ghost walks or whatever, but you really do need to be able to know how to keep that stuff, let it stay there and not follow you home.
yes. Yes, and that can,
It's a
and
lot
like,
to
and you make a
learn.
very good point. It doesn't always have to be that you go to a cemetery. It could just be any place you go to. It doesn't
Right,
necessarily have to be the scary cemetery.
right.
As a matter of fact, that hospital thing you said about that, you could pick up a lot. I'm sorry,
Oh,
believe
I
it or
can't
not.
stand hospitals.
You hear that Snoopy dog going off in the background, that Snoopy music? That's
No.
my dog. Who needs kids when you have dogs? Hold on. In case everybody can't see it, yes. She took the Snoopy stuffed animal that plays that little peanut song, and now she's looking at me
Uh-huh.
with like, yep, that was me. Thank you, Trouble. In the middle of a show. She's wonderful. Rhonda, thank you so
Oh.
much for the time you spent. It's been great. It's been fantastic. Like I said, I will put the link to your website so people can contact you for whatever, whether it's the reading and investigation or for a
Mhm.
lecture, whatever the case might be. And it was wonderful to
Mhm.
have you. I enjoyed it so, so much. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and you're a pleasure to talk to. And anytime you want me on your show again, just let me know.
Absolutely. We'll be staying in touch. Absolutely. Take care, darling.
Take care.
Bye bye. So, what did you think? I don't know about you, but I thought she was such an interesting lady. Okay. Because so much of what she said is what I've had my own experiences with. And the part about the Reiki, I was thrilled. I was thrilled to find somebody who not only understood about Reiki and energy, because basically that's what it's all about. It's energy. And anybody that works in the paranormal field, uh, ghosts, whatever, spirits, even kinetic energy, like, that sometimes people believe fuels poltergeist activity. It's all energy. And as a somebody that's well versed as a master in Reiki, she understands, hey, uh, what you do or what you say, all those things absolutely have something. In other words, it when I said that like attracts like, that's basically what it boils down to. Uh, and that angle that of the Reiki, besides, because a lot of people think of Reiki as like a healing energy or things of this nature. No, she's using it. She's using it in paranormal work. Uh, and I think it was great when she said that thing about blessing the water, because I personally, I have to like continuously all day long remind myself to drink liquids, drink water, uh, and that thing of like we can use it not just for hydration of the body, but basically not only to get toxins, but rid of toxins out of your body, but your spiritual and your emotional, like let it go. Bless the water, and I think that's great. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for viewing the show. Subscribe to my channel, hit the like button. I'm sorry with my little dogs having the peanut thing go off in the back. My kids are grown up, so I don't have a cute little baby, but I have cute little dogs that do exactly just like children, embarrass you at the worst possible moment. So anyway, guys, it was great to produce the show for you. I hope you come back every week. I have a lot of fantastic and interesting shows coming up. So, and again, catch me on Twitter and on Facebook. I do a lot of live streams there when I'm out in the field, especially. So hook up with me there so that you know. And also, my new book just released. It's on September 30th. It's available on Amazon, or you can go to my website, miamighostchronicles.com, and you can pre-order it there if you'd like. We'll ship it out as soon as September 30th comes. It will go right out to you. So again, thank you so much. And I'm working on my second book. It was great. What's today? Today's Sunday, guys, at least here for me. Have a great rest of the week. Take care.